Yo, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to D+Pad Life, and today I want to discuss the Resident Evil CG movies. Now, I believe this is part 17 in the Resident Evil discussion series. I might be wrong there, but either way, I just finished watching all of these over the last 2 weeks or so, and man, I've got some thoughts. So let's go ahead and jump into it. But before we do, leave a comment down below. Have you seen the Resident Evil CG movies? Which ones have you seen? Which one was your favorite? How stupid are they? It's kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm curious on if any of these really stuck with you, or if you think, they're all pretty mid and passable. I think that they each have a redeeming quality. So we're just going to jump into it. We're going to go one movie at a time, and at the end, I'll rank them all from what I think is the best and which ones are the worst. So kicking things off, this is the only copy so far that I physically own. I probably will acquire all of these at some point or another, but for right now, I only own Degeneration. All the others I got from my local library. So that was kind of cool that they had them all. But Resident Evil Degeneration, it's very old now. I wonder when this came out. Am I able to find it quick? It looks like it says 2008. Yeah, and you could tell the graphics in this one are the most dated out of all of them. Leon has this is his look the entire movie. His face, his facial expressions do not change, so that's kind of funny. But I actually thought this one was pretty decent. It's not the worst movie ever. It's pretty good. The thing though about these movies that carries throughout every single one of them is that this is like the wacky Resident Evil. This is like the Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. Maybe even leaning closer to that 6. Probably somewhere in between 5 and 6 as far as wackiness, action, goofiness kind of goes. Degeneration, I would say, is probably the most grounded in regards to trying to give you the most authentic, conventional Resident Evil experience. I think only from here does it get crazier and crazier. But overall, the plot in this one is pretty good. It's pretty interesting. I'd say throughout all the movies, you're not necessarily going to find a plot that's super significant. They don't really ever tie themselves into the games in such a way that they feel like they matter towards the greater scheme of Resident Evil. But this one ties in TerraSave, which is an organization that Claire works for. And they get mentioned in Revelations 2. It also includes Tricell, which is from Resident Evil 5. So you do get a few references to the world of the video games. And overall, all the movies are a nice little brief watch. Most of them are about an hour and a half long, sometimes a little longer, rarely a little shorter. And all in all, you get a fun little experience. Definitely a lot of action taking place here. I think this one is most popular for the airport section. I think zombie outbreak in an airport conceptually is just a really cool thing. And I think they capitalized on it for the most part. I thought they did a pretty darn good job. But in the end, another thing all of these movies have in common, they all fall apart at the end. Usually the last half hour or so, the wackiness as far as raising your suspension of disbelief to a point where it's no longer reasonable, it always gets broken. A lot of BOWs that still speak English. A lot of just unbelievable action. I mean, in one of these flicks, Leon shoots a zombie that is probably 30 feet behind him without looking. He literally points his gun over his shoulder like this, fires, and he hits the zombie right in the head. Give me a break. You know what I mean? But they still have redeemable qualities. The action scenes are fun. All of these movies are a stupid good time. The worst offense is that they can be boring. And I can only really think of one in the pile that was just straight up bro, I am so uninterested in this movie. And even it had some stuff that got me hyped. But yeah, Degeneration, I would say it's definitely one of the better ones as far as plot goes. I thought it ultimately told a fairly interesting story, and I enjoyed the cast of characters that they provided here. This is the second one, Damnation, and this is actually my least favorite. It takes place in basically a country that's supposed to be similar to Russia or maybe the Ukraine, something like that. And it's just mostly uninteresting. They introduced Ada to this one. So no more Claire, but there is Leon again, and there is Ada. And Ada's just, she didn't really, I don't know, she didn't have to be there. They put her in here just to put her in here. I don't feel like she really adds a lot to the film. This one to me Its biggest offense is that it's just pretty boring. It has practically zero connection to anything from the games, and ultimately the story they tell, it just all feels kind of pointless. I mean, there is a conclusion, things do get achieved, but it's nothing you're going to see outside of this film, and it's nothing that's going to influence any future film. So Damnation just kind of stands as just like, yeah, it's another one of the CG movies. I'm kind of shocked that after this, they continue to pump out so many more, because I thought this was really pretty boring. It has some interesting stuff. I don't want to get too much into spoilers with these videos, but I will say they introduced the concept of being able to control BOWs. Like, you inject yourself with this virus that allows you to control BOWs basically with your mind. And so that's pretty cool in a sense if it's done well. Here it's done okay. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too crazy. It is a concept that I wouldn't necessarily mind seeing in some of the newer games, since the newer games are pretty stupid themselves. But ultimately, Damnation, if I was going to say there's any to skip, it would be this one. Resident Evil Vendetta, though. Now, this is the best one in my opinion. It is extremely stupid, extremely over the top, but it is a blast. This movie is an absolute trip. It is a journey. They do return with Rebecca Chambers, which is cool. Leon's in this one too, and what's interesting is Leon has like the same personality as Chris did from Resident Evil 6. He's like drinking and just over everything. He's like, is this what my life's become? I can't believe this is all I'm doing. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, he's kind of like sulking. He doesn't show any signs of that before this movie, doesn't show any signs of that in the movies after, and he's never been like that in the games. So I'm not sure what inspired them to do that. It would have made a lot more sense for that to be Chris, but no, they just decided to do that. And it just makes Leon feel really odd in this film. He doesn't feel like the same character really, but this one definitely has the most over-the-top action, but also the most thrilling, the most fun, the most exciting. I mean, I was cheering, I was hooting, I was hollering, I was losing my mind to this one. There's some crazy, crazy stuff. Vendetta, to me, in this entire stack, is a must-watch. Don't sleep on Vendetta. You don't need to watch the ones before this. You don't need to watch the ones after. It does not matter. Vendetta's great. Seeing this up here does remind me, one of the reasons that these movies tend to fall apart around the end is they all want to try to introduce some sort of like tyrant type creature. And I just don't think they all really needed that. In my opinion, it does. Maybe tyrant creature is not the right word. It's like an ultimate bioweapon, some big mega force. In fact, it's funny. Damnation, the worst one of the stack, is the only one that doesn't really do that. It has one, but it's not like an OG character who suddenly transforms to a tyrant or something like that. They use actually pre-existing monsters. But Vendetta does it as well. I don't know if I'd go as far. Let me think. I'd say they probably do it second best. I think Degeneration's like tyrant variant is probably the most interesting, intriguing, and unique. This one's probably second best. But yeah, Vendetta is an absolute blast. I actually do recommend this one. If you get the chance to see it, don't miss out on this. So now we're at Death Island. This is the most recent of the CG films. I know you're like, but there's another one right there, but we'll talk about that. Death Island introduced Jill. This one has everyone who's appeared so far. Leon, Rebecca, Chris, Claire, and now Jill joins the fray. And it's interesting. I think the plot seems interesting at first, but it ultimately doesn't really build up to much of anything, unfortunately. This one has one of the more pointless stories, in my opinion. It's similar to Damnation in that way, that like, did this story really need to be told? It achieved nothing. Almost the entire movie, they're all split up from one another, so you don't have like a big fight scene where everyone's together just kicking tail. I mean, technically there's one, but it's not the way you would picture it based off like what these other movies have established. Yeah, they try to introduce like this new unique type of liquor. I thought they kind of missed the opportunity with that. The plot in and of itself is just not that great. It's pretty far-fetched. I consider this one a bit of a letdown, if I'm being honest. I expected a good amount from Death Island because I saw all the promo photos for it and they made it look really great. But in all honesty, it's just kind of dull. It's just kind of bland. Every bad guy in these movies has some master plan on how they're going to either destroy the world, influence the world, take over the world, whatever. And they're all pretty goofy schemes. I would say this one, I mean, it could be considered reasonable to be achievable, but it's still a little out there. Yeah. And there's a whole lot of convenient things in these movies too, like people conveniently being where they need to be right when they need to be there, or weapons conveniently being right there when you need them, things of that nature. This one's an offender of that for sure, big time. So I said that was the last movie, but then what is this? Infinite Darkness. So Resident Evil actually got a CG Netflix series. I batched it in with these because this is absolutely not a series. This was a CG movie that they realized they could break into 4 episodes. Each episode is 25 minutes long. What is that? That's like about an hour and 45 minutes or so, an hour and 40 minutes for a movie. That's about as long as these movies are. This was just the 5th movie, and they decided to make a deal with Netflix to make it seem like a series. Now, granted, what I will admit is the pacing is done well enough that it does work episodically. And yeah, it kept me watching. I watched 1 episode, and then the next day I finished that one up, and then I ended up watching the other 3 back to back because I really did want to see what happens next. And I had heard people say that this one was boring, but I actually thought it was pretty darn good. I thought they told an interesting story. I wasn't necessarily like a huge fan of where the plot went, but I thought it told a pretty interesting story. And decent action, 1 new interesting BOW that I thought was great. Absolutely great. Probably my favorite scene in the whole deal here. Pretty modest action compared to some of the others, but ultimately, yeah, not bad. I wouldn't think of, I don't think this one's that bad at all. I just thought, just like all the others, unfortunately, it fell apart at the end. And like I said, it's always the last half hour or so that falls apart in these movies. And that means the entire last episode to me was just like, it's just like not that good, just kind of okay. So, all in all, if I was going to say, should you go out of your way to watch these CG movies? I would say not really. You're not really missing out on a lot, if I'm being honest, but I would say definitely check out Vendetta. It is a blast. It is hilarious. It is a good time. If you want a little bit more after Vendetta, you got to understand every movie other than Vendetta scales it down. None of them are as action-packed as Vendetta. If you want more hardcore action, like that's all you really want, Damnation has some pretty good scenes, but there is a lot of downtime in this movie. I would say this one's the most boring of them all, but it does have some decent action scenes. If you want another pretty good story with intrigue that's interesting, Degeneration or Infinite Darkness is good for that. Death Island is just kind of bland, not a lot going on. So if I had to say from like best to worst, like a tier list, I would put Vendetta at the front. In second place, that's honestly the most competitive spot, but I'd say Degeneration for second. Then I would say Infinite Darkness for third. And then you get down to these 2. And as I reflect on them, I would say overall, Death Island's probably the better movie, but I'm more eager to see the action scenes from Damnation more than I am Death Island. So I'd put it like that. I would say in 5th place, Death Island, 4th place, Damnation, 3rd place, Infinite Darkness, 2nd place, Degeneration, and 1st place, Vendetta. Wow, it's really funny. Going into this, I thought I knew the order I'd put these in, but now that I sit here filming and talking about it, nah, this would be the order. I actually would put Death Island on the bottom. That's crazy. Death Island, it just ultimately felt disappointing. Like, you've got all these characters, they're hardly interacting with each other. When they finally are together, all I'll say is like they can't fight at this point, so nothing's really happening. Then you get to the quote-unquote final boss, and he's honestly a pushover in my opinion. That was kind of the problem with Infinite Darkness too. That final boss just got handled. He just got dealt with. It goes on for a while, but he really doesn't do anything significant at all. And his entire like motivation, him being the final boss made sense, but then like his conclusion on here's how I'm going to get even, it just didn't make any sense. It's just like, what? Really? Okay. But yeah, I would say this is how I would rank them. Vendetta, Degeneration, Infinite Darkness, Damnation, Death Island, but definitely Vendetta's number 1. You got to check this movie out. It is freaking hilarious. It is a good time. And Degeneration's actually pretty decent. I was shocked. I remember not really liking this as a kid, but coming back to it now, I was like, yeah, man, that's fun. So anyways, that wraps it up for today's episode, man. Those are where I stand with the CG films. I believe this is part 17, I hope I'm right with that, of the Resident Evil discussion series. Next up, I got a surprise for you guys on what we'll be discussing with Resident Evil, but that's for a future video. In the meantime, though, if you could do me a favor and put a like on this video, I really appreciate that. It helps give the channel more exposure, helps grow this video in particular. And if you enjoyed the conversation today, man, hit that subscribe button. I upload about 2 to 3 videos every week. It's a very active channel, and we're always having fun over here. And yeah, don't forget to comment down below. Have you seen these movies? Which ones did you see? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Talk to me, man. Let me know what you thought about the Resident Evil CG films. Because boy howdy, at this point, there's a lot of them. And I'll tell you what, give me another one, man. I'll take another one. I'm ready for it. I would totally invite another one of these crazy, crazy journeys into the picture here. I think next I'm going to go grab all of the live action movies and actually watch those, even though I know they're trash. I'm just going to have some fun and do that too. That will not be the next video, though. The next video is a big surprise. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys in the next Resident Evil discussion videos, and see you again on D+Pad Life. Y'all take care now.